Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial where we look at Adobe Illustrator and using it to create shapes and vectorizing it and to create a logo design that's personal to you and your company. If you've used any other Adobe programs before, a lot of the interface in the workspace should look very similar. It actually resembles Photoshop a lot, but Illustrator is used by a lot of logo designers because it is a vector-based shape program. And what it means by vector-based is that it uses anchor points and different points around a shape, and that you can manipulate and stretch and rotate to your liking. So here I was just playing around with some shapes and trying to create kind of a music company logo, something along those lines. And I'm going to walk you through kind of today in the tutorial how to create shapes and to vectorize images so you can start with your logo design. So we're going to start ahead. I've created a practice one where I just went to the file new and I created a new A4 canvas. And I'm going to kind of walk you through some of the basic tools of Illustrator first, just to get you started. So if you've used Photoshop before, some of these will be very familiar and very similar. The first thing to kind of get familiar with is the two arrow keys. So we have a black arrow key and we also have a white arrow key. It's also good to get used to your hotkeys at this point, which are keyboard shortcuts that will make your life a lot easier when you're trying to select certain tools. So the black arrow key is the V, selection, and the white arrow key is A for direct selection tool. And the reason why it's A is because it has to deal with moving around anchor points. So if you selected the black arrow, you can move shapes around easily in your canvas, whereas if you selected the white arrow, you could select different anchor points and do manipulations and stretch things like so. So those are the two different arrow keys. We also have, I'm going to show you how to draw some basic shapes. If you have the shape maker here and you hold down any of these tools, if you see the little white triangle at the bottom, that means that if you hold down and press, there's more options for you in that tool. So I'm going to go ahead and create a simple rectangle. And I've selected a color just so it makes it a little bit easier. And this is a simple rectangle shape, and if I wanted to create some more interesting shapes within this rectangle, I can use the line tool, which is above the shape tool, and just draw a line through the diagonally through there. And one of the most useful windows that you should have open is something called the Pathfinder window. So it's a Pathfinder window, has a lot of shape and options to trim and merge and divide your shapes. Another useful window while we're talking about windows is to have the layer window open as well. And this is similar to Photoshop, where if you're working with layers, it's quite important because then you can isolate certain ones, you can turn off which ones you want to see, which ones you don't want to see, and it's just a lot neater to work with layers. If you don't see any of these windows on your workspace, you always can just go up to the window and find a lot of the windows that you want to open. So here I've drawn a line through my rectangle, and I'm going to use the selection tool and select all of them. And then I'm going to use, in the Pathfinder window, this divide button. So if I use the divide and I divide it, and then I right click and ungroup, then I've just created two triangles from a rectangle. You can get really kind of creative with this and have fun. You can have over here on the side tool, the rotation tool, R. If you do rotation, you can select on something and rotate the triangle however you want it to, and you can kind of make a different type of shape here, geometric shapes. So you can imagine there's a lot of endless possibilities that you can start to design your logo through making shapes. I can show you really quickly how you can do one with a circle. You can have a circle, and say if you hold down on this line, you can actually create an arc, and maybe I might want to create something like a moon shape. So I might kind of create a little arc tool here. Again, do the same thing and select everything. Pathfinder, divide, right click, ungroup, and then I've just created kind of a moon shape that I could use within my logo. Once you've you've had some time creating shapes and playing around with it, you can actually then go and experiment with the direct selection tool. And if you click on that, you'll notice that in all of the shapes, there are blue dots, and sometimes they can turn into white dots. And these are basically paths and anchors. And that's why Illustrator is such a great, powerful tool, because you can manipulate anchors based on vectors. So if you wanted to, you can double click on an anchor, and then it actually has a little handle here where you could manipulate everything around that one anchor point. So if I wanted to create a different shape here, a little bit different, this would have been a little bit easier than to draw freehand with just a simple pen tool. You can stretch things however to your liking. So that is using the direct selection tool. Another thing that would be helpful is also for you to, if you have an image that you wanted to trace and kind of use as a starting point for your logo design, you could do image tracing. And how to do image tracing is if you already had an object in mind. So for example, if I'm already thinking I'm going to make a logo design for my music company, I found an image, and I'm going to place it. I found an image of a treble clef, basic treble clef, and it's very simple. I got it off of Google Images. And what you can do is actually, once you select it, there will be an kind of a little bit of options up here. And up here in particular is an option called Image Trace. If you select down there, there's a lot of different options that it will give you. You can make it into line art. You can see what it did here. And it kind of marks out all the major lines. That you can see it didn't really do much. Outline. You can go back. You can make it into 3 colors. You can make it into, see if whatever it does with 16 colors. Doesn't do much. You can do shades of gray. Black and white logo. Again, didn't really do much. Going to go back to the default. So say for example, if I'm just going to go with shades of gray, not much, but I'm going to select everything here, and what is the best part about image tracing is that I'm going to go ahead and press something called expand, and what it's going to do is it's going to trace all of the parts of the images and put anchor points on the main parts. From here, what you can do is a whole myriad of choices. So I can right click and ungroup, and what that does is it will ungroup certain parts of the image. So if I wanted to get rid of the sides and I wanted to work with just the treble clef, I can select this and delete, and then that's gone. I can select the sides and delete, and that's gone. So far though, I can still manipulate whatever's in the middle, those white parts. So say for example, if I think I want to do some colorful things in this treble clef, I can select this part, go over here to the color guide. Maybe I'm going to give it a little bit of a green background just to accentuate it. I could also do something where I want to do something a little bit fun with the tail of the treble clef. If I go in, use your direct selection tool, which is A, then it will select these white anchor points. And once you select it, I'm going to have a little bit of a fun with the anchor points. Maybe I can make it into something that resembles a little bit of a heart. And this is where, again, you can see how you can get very creative with your logo designs. Another thing, if you do not want to image trace or make things out of shapes, is you can also use a tool called the pen tool, which is P. And if you do the pen tool, this is kind of back to the old freehand way of drawing, where you would be able to use the vector points and start creating different shapes that are interesting, that might help you in trying to convey something in your logo design. So these are all just basic tools and basic starting points for you to design your logo within Adobe Illustrator.